Your alarm goes off at 5:12 a.m. Not because you are disciplined, because rent is due in 9 days, your student loan payment clears on Friday, and the number in your bank account has started to feel less like money and more like a countdown. You are 22 years old. You have one suit, two pairs of shoes, and a folder on your laptop named Future Plans that you have not opened in months. Your first job pays more than your parents ever made at your age, but somehow, after taxes, rent, food, transportation, insurance, and debt, it feels like the money evaporates before it becomes yours. Cool. So you learn the first rule. At the bottom, income is not freedom. Income is oxygen. You do not think about wealth yet. You think about survival. You think about not being late. You think about not making mistakes in front of people who speak like they were born. Inside conference rooms. You answer emails fast. You say yes before understanding the question. You stay late because someone might notice. And eventually someone does. Not because you are special. Because you are useful. That is the first door. Usefulness. At this level, people do not promote potential. They promote reliability. You become the person who can fix the spreadsheet, prepare the deck, summarize the meeting. Stay calm when the client changes everything at 10:47 p.m. You begin to understand that the workplace has two maps. The official map has job titles, departments, managers, and performance reviews. The real map has trust access, favors timing, and who gets invited into the room before the meeting starts. You are still outside that room, but now you know it exists. 2 years later, your salary has gone up. Your lifestyle has gone up faster. A better apartment, better shoes, better restaurants when you feel exhausted enough to deserve them. Your friends say you are doing well. Your bank account disagrees. This is the second level. The level where success starts to look expensive. You are not broke anymore, but you are not free. You are earning enough to build a life and spending enough to keep yourself trapped inside it. Nobody teaches you this part. They teach you how to get promoted. They do not teach you how to avoid building a prison with nicer furniture. So you make the first serious adjustment. You stop asking, can I afford this? You start asking, what does this make me dependent on? That question changes everything. You keep the old car. You delay the bigger apartment. You learn that looking successful is often the most expensive way to stay powerless. And for the first time, the money does not disappear. It stays. Then it begins to gather. Slowly at first. A few $1,000s. Then 10,000. Then more than you have ever seen sitting quietly in one place. You do not feel rich. You feel less afraid. That is the third level. The first taste of financial breathing room. Not wealth. Not luxury. Just space. Space to say no. Space to leave a bad job. Space to handle one emergency without begging anyone for help. At this level, money becomes emotional before it becomes strategic. It lowers your heart rate. It lets you sleep. It gives you a private kind of dignity nobody can see from the outside. Then one day, a strange thing happens. A manager asks you to join a project early. Not because your title requires it, because your judgment is becoming valuable. You sit in a meeting where decisions are not yet polished. People speak honestly there. They mention budgets before public announcements. They discuss layoffs before employees know. They debate expansion before the company celebrates growth. You realize information has a temperature. Cold information is old. Everyone has it. Warm information is useful. Some people have it. Hot information moves decisions before anyone else sees the decision. You do nothing illegal. You do not trade secrets. You simply notice. The people with better information do not move faster. They move earlier. That is the fourth level. Information advantage. You start reading beyond your job. Industry reports. Company filings. Hiring trends. Debt levels. Regulatory shifts. You stop seeing your career as a ladder. You start seeing it as a network of signals. Who is hiring? Who is freezing budgets? Who is raising money? Who is pretending everything is fine? You become harder to surprise. And in a world full of panic, calm becomes valuable. Then comes the offer. Not the biggest salary. The better room. A smaller company. More risk. More responsibility. Equity. At first, the word sounds abstract. Equity. Ownership. A piece of something that may become nothing or may become the reason your life changes. You run the numbers. You ask people you trust. You realize most people do not understand risk. They only understand fear after it has already arrived. So you take the offer. This is not a guarantee. It is not a shortcut. It is a different kind of exposure. And exposure always sends a bill. Your parents do not fully understand. Your friends think you are gambling. Maybe you are. But for the first time, your income is not only tied to your hours. It is tied to an outcome. That is the fifth level. Ownership. Everything feels different here. When the company wins, you win. When the company struggles, your stomach feels it before the finance team sends the report. You stop thinking like an employee. You start thinking like someone exposed to consequences. Costs are not numbers anymore. They are choices. Hiring is not a line item. It is a bet. Marketing is not a campaign. It is oxygen. You learn that ownership does not make you relaxed. It makes you responsible in a way salary never did. Then the company grows. Not explosively. Not like a movie. Quietly. A customer renews. A competitor fails. A senior hire works out. A product launch does not collapse. The boring things compound. 3 years later, the company is acquired. Not for $1 billion. Not for headlines. Enough. Enough to clear your debt. Enough to buy your time back. Enough to make the next decision from strength instead of fear. This is the sixth level. Liquidity. Before this moment, your wealth was theoretical. On paper. In contracts. In dashboards. Now it is real. It lands in an account. A number you refresh 3 times because some part of you does not believe it belongs to you. You expect fireworks. Instead, you feel quiet. Then confused. Because the problem you spent years solving is suddenly gone. And without that pressure, you realize how much of your identity was built around escape. You thought money would tell you who to become. It only removed the excuse. Now you have to choose. At this level, the biggest danger is not losing the money. It is mistaking money for personality. So you do what most newly wealthy people do. You upgrade carefully at first. Then less carefully. Better hotel rooms. Private dining rooms. Invitations that make you feel selected. You meet people who speak in asset classes, not salaries. Real estate. Private credit. Angel deals. Funds. Carry. Tax structures. You realize there is another language above money. Capital. Money buys things. Capital buys position. That is the 7th level. Capital allocation. You are no longer only trying to earn. You are deciding where money should go. A friend brings you a startup. A fund offers you access. A real estate group invites you into a deal. Everyone is polite. Everyone is confident. Everyone has a deck. And every deck says the same thing in a different outfit. This opportunity is rare. You learn the next rule slowly and expensively. Access is not the same as quality. Sometimes people invite you because you are smart. Sometimes they invite you because you are liquid. You lose money on the first private deal. It does not mean you are foolish. It means the lesson finally became expensive enough to remember. Not enough to destroy you. Enough to educate you. The founder was charming. The market was real. The timing was wrong. The structure was worse. You learn that rich people do not avoid mistakes. They survive them. Then they price them into the next decision. You become more selective. You ask better questions. Who controls the downside? Who gets paid first? Who can exit? Who is trapped? At this level, risk is not danger. Risk is design. Years pass. Your name begins to travel ahead of you. Not publicly, privately. A founder mentions you to another founder. A fund manager introduces you to a family office. A lawyer invites you to a dinner where nobody talks about the real reason they are there until dessert. You are not famous. Fame would be inefficient. You are known where it matters. That is the 8th level. Reputation. Reputation is strange because you never fully own it. Other people carry it for you. They say you are disciplined, patient, useful, serious, not emotional, not loud, not desperate. These descriptions become a kind of invisible credit score. Doors open faster. Calls get returned sooner. Terms become slightly better. Not because the world is fair, because trust reduces friction. You sit across from people who have far more money than you. And for the first time, you are not intimidated. You understand the game now. Not completely. Nobody does. But enough. You know that every room has a center of gravity. Sometimes it is the richest person. Sometimes it is the person with the relationship. Sometimes it is the person with the information. Sometimes it is the person who can walk away. That last one matters most. The ability to walk away is the cleanest form of power. So you protect it. You do not overextend. You do not borrow against everything. You do not let your lifestyle become a hostage situation. You remember the early years. The rent. The debt. The countdown. And you decide never to need applause badly enough to become owned by it. Then comes the invitation that changes the shape of your life. A board seat. At first it sounds ceremonial. Quarterly meetings. Strategy. Oversight. Governance. Then you read the documents. You realize the board is not there to watch the company. It is there to decide what the company is allowed to become. You review executive compensation, acquisition targets, debt capacity, expansion plans, layoff scenarios. The human consequences are written in neutral language. Operational efficiency, margin improvement, workforce optimization. You have seen these words before. But this time, your vote matters. That is the 9th level. Influence. Influence is heavier than money because it travels beyond you. A decision made in one room becomes a restructuring in another city. A delay becomes pressure on employees you will never meet. A yes becomes debt. A no becomes a missed opportunity. There is no clean version of this. Only trade-offs with better lighting. You try to be thoughtful. You ask about people, not just margins. Sometimes it changes the decision. Sometimes it only changes the minutes of the meeting. And this is where many people harden. Not because they are evil. Because softness becomes expensive when every decision has a cost. The system rewards distance. Distance from workers. Distance from customers. Distance from consequences. The farther away you are, the easier everything becomes to optimize. That is the danger. Not corruption in the dramatic sense. Abstraction. Turning people into categories. Turning risk into percentages. Turning pain into a line item. You begin to understand the final rule. At the highest levels, the moral question is rarely, is this wrong? It is usually, can this be justified? And almost anything can be justified by someone intelligent enough. Years later, you're older. Not old, just far from the person who woke up at 5:12 a.m. with rent anxiety and one suit. You now sit in rooms where people discuss cities, industries, interest rates, elections, supply chains, and demographic shifts as if they are weather systems. You have more money than you need, more access than you expected, more influence than you can comfortably explain, and less certainty than you had when you were young. That surprises you. You thought the top would feel clear. It does not. It feels quiet. At the bottom, life was noisy because you had no control. At the top, life is quiet because control comes with isolation. Fewer people tell you the truth. More people manage your mood. Every conversation has layers. Every invitation has a reason. Every compliment carries a possible invoice. So you narrow your circle. You protect your time. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding wealth as either virtue or villainy. You know it is neither. Money is a tool. Capital is a force. Influence is a responsibility. And power is a mirror. It does not create your character. It removes the conditions that used to hide it. Somewhere in a small apartment, a 22-year-old opens a laptop before sunrise. The screen is too bright. The coffee is cheap. The future feels urgent. He thinks the goal is to make more money. He thinks wealth is a number. He thinks freedom begins when the account gets big enough. He is not completely wrong. But he is not right either. Because the real journey is not from poor to rich. It is from dependence to choice. From panic to patience. From being useful to being trusted. From earning money to directing capital. From wanting access to understanding its cost. The alarm rings. The city wakes up. And somewhere, another person begins climbing a ladder without knowing what each level will take from them, or what it will reveal.